So after doing the media blasting last night, I went indoors and picked up the pack of stuff that I've got to refurbish the calipers. So there's pistons and seals in there, enough to do hopefully the 2 calipers that I'm doing. Now obviously now I know they're all ready, so I'm going to crack on and try and get the powder coating done. I've decided to go, as I said the other day, for a nice bright red for the actual calipers themselves, and what I'm going to have a try and do is also try and do the bolt fixings in a black as well, to stay nice and distinctive. So earlier on I've taken the calipers obviously over to the workbench, cleaned them all up as much as I can. I've also, to do the powder coating, you have to have some fixtures to actually hang the stuff with. So normally I use a twisted bit of wire that goes around the calipers, and obviously you can attach it to any holes or bolts that you've got as well. So because you only want to powder coat certain items, you have to apply green tape or silicone bungs to anything you don't want to get powder coated. So in this case I'm using what is actually quite a sort of rigid plastic sheeted. It's obviously high temperature, so you put that onto the part, put the powder coating powder on the part, and that obviously stops it getting to the threads and holes and machine surfaces that you don't want to get any powder coating on. And you obviously then cut the excess off, which is what's happened here. So I've obviously cut all the bits that I need to put them onto the item at the moment, just getting things ready. So I've I've actually sieved out some of the red powder coating that I've got, and obviously some black as well, ready to go later on. Obviously just put it through the sieve to get out any little clumps there may be in there. I've then put the stuff after getting another little clean, I put the items into the powder coating oven, which is over here. It's just heating up at the moment. The idea is you basically what they call outgas, so you heat the item up to above the temperature that the powder coating will go to. So the powder I'm using normally flows out around about 180 degrees, so I'm going to heat these up to well over 200. Therefore it gets any contaminants you might have picked up from the sandblasting at all, or touching with your hands, or even with the acetone or any other chemicals that might still be in there that you want to get rid of now. You don't want them coming out again later on when you've actually got the powder coat on there and you're in the oven. So it's called outgassing. So they're just heating up at the moment. I'll just turn the oven on. So I've got a thermometer, which I'll just crack open the door, shine it on the item itself rather than actually on the oven, to see what the actual temperature of the item is. So that's going to take a little while to heat up at the moment. And obviously all I'll be doing is I'll literally just be using this infrared thermometer. See the little red dots, so obviously it'll show the ambient temperature, which is obviously 13 degrees. But later on that'll obviously show me what the actual item is later on. Once they've done all that and got up to temperature, I'll just let them cool down a little bit, bring them back out, give them another bit of a clean up, try to avoid touching with any bare hands in case there's any oils or salts on my skin that obviously affect the powder coating. And then eventually they'll be hung up. They've already got wires twisted around, as I said, hung up from the ceiling of the workshop. And then basically I attach an earth wire to the fixer wire that I've got. So this wire that comes in part of the actual powder coating set will go onto either the wire or the item to earth it out. Then with the kit, this particular one I've got is actually a foot pedal. The kit's over there, it's a little bit old now. But basically when you operate the foot pedal, sort of green light comes on in the left hand corner to show you obviously you operated it, and at that point you're effectively charging the system. So the powder that now gets a charge that will go from the end of the gun out and try and stick to the negative side, which is going to be attached to the earth, obviously a bit like the old chroming sort of system. So it should effectively make the item positive charge and stick to it. You can obviously then, if you feel that you put too much powder on or it's in the wrong place, you can obviously wipe it all off as much as you want to and redo it again. You only use a small air pressure of around about 8 psi through the air regulator or the air dryers. You see the little filter, and it just comes out the end of the gun as a powder. Obviously sticks to the item. You then very carefully lift the item off of the rack where you got it, put it into the oven again, and once again once it comes up to temperature around about 180 degrees, you'll see the actual powder flow out and go more liquidy rather than being a powder effect. And from that point on, you then count about 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, for the actual item to effectively flow out into all the areas and start curing. Once you've done that, you then open the oven up, pull the item out, turn the oven off, and just let it dry in air if you want to. And once it's actually cold, it's actually then good to use, unlike paint, which is going to be soft for quite a while and need to be cured for a while before you can actually start playing around with it. Once I've done all that, I'm going to try and see if I can get all the seals in. Basically, obviously they're the side seals that I took out yesterday, going inside the caliper. I'm going to try and get the seals and the pistons back in the caliper before I obviously reassemble it. It's a lot easier to get to and do it that way. Last time I did it, as I said before, I left the calipers in one piece, and they're a bit hard to get these ones in and to get the pistons back in again. So I'm hoping doing it apart is going to be easier to achieve. So let's wait till the outgassing does its stuff, and then we'll hang them up and get the powder coat sorted out. So earlier on I took a quick photograph of the calipers as they were sitting in the oven starting to warm up, and the appearance of the powder was still as a powder sort of substance. It's been turned on now for about 20 minutes in the oven. I can see just by turning this on it's now more of a sort of paint like, so it's obviously flowed out. So now if I'm going to pop the oven open, I'm going to try and get the temperature. I imagine it should be somewhere in the region, well, I'm coming up towards 180 now. Let's have a little go. Get my little gun out of the other end, and we'll see what it is. See what temperature it is. Sorry about that. And there you go. We're 199. So that's actually on the item. 200 degrees. See, it looks lovely and flowed out now. And around the back here should be the bolt tops as well, nice and black. So I'm going to give it another 10 minutes at that temperature, and then come back and see how she looks when I take them out. Well, it's been another 10 minutes. As I cut the last video, I actually went out and turned off one of the elements. So there's actually 3 elements in this powder coating oven. I just turned one of them off because obviously it was already up to 200. Didn't really want it keeping up any higher than that, so I thought I'd try and keep it controlled. So I just turned one off. So let's see what it dropped down to. But it's also had the additional 10 minutes now, so hopefully we should be ready to let it start cooling down. Yeah, 185 you can see, and that's say the curing temperature for this is 180, so that was bang on. So I did the right thing just to turn off that basically the middle element on the right hand side is controlled off a separate circuit. So what I'm going to do is, rather than risk trying to take them out, to let them air dry and possibly, you know, maybe getting them catch them somewhere on the way out, because it is still a bit tacky. I'm just going to turn the oven off, open the doors up, let it cool down naturally over the next sort of 20 minutes or so, because it's a bit of a mass of metal there, so it will take a while. And we'll come back and see how they actually look. But initially, yeah, it's a little bit warm in there. They certainly look better than they did when I started on it yesterday. Well, I gave it half an hour to cool down after I turned all the elements off, so the powder coating oven was nice and cool. So I can just take these bolts out by hand. Obviously they're nice and cooled down now. There's still quite a bit of heat left in the actual calipers. Still quite warm, but just looking at that, how lovely does that look as it is? Hopefully it's going to look a lot better after a few years than my present painted ones do. So let's take some of these covers off. This protective cover mentioned before, the green stuff, it's obviously heat resistant, so the idea is it will protect any areas you don't want to get heated up. So the idea here was just to get the head of the bolt done, so obviously I'll put it around just at the black of it goes, the end of it goes nice and black. I'm hoping it's going to look pretty good up against the calipers for years to come. This stuff does go a bit more brittle once it's been obviously heated up, but yeah, slip that off. That's going to do the job lovely. Quick look at one of the calipers. Take the supporting wire out. Pull the protective cover off for where the piston housing is. And all I've done, as you see, you might not have seen it probably earlier on, is I've just put in some sort of dummy nuts and bolts in here. Obviously to protect the thread on this side, because this end had the thread showing, or this side of the caliper had the thread showing. So I've just dropped some small sort of 6mm screws in there, Put some 10mm nuts in the back just to hold the actual cover on. So obviously that's a machine surface all along here. So I want to make sure I'm going to protect that. So let's see if I can get that off whilst you can see it. No, obviously the powder coating, there you go, has actually made the threads go a little bit tight. So I need to sort out that in a minute. But hopefully I should be able to pull it off over that. So once again, it's obviously protect the machine edge. I can just take off any powder coating on the edge here that I need to maybe. But yeah, it's done its job to protect the majority of the machine surface. And obviously that's where the seal goes to join the two parts of the caliper together. That other bit sort of stuck on there, but I'll take them off in a minute. And likewise on the other end, again, that's got a little bit tight, so I have to get them off. But again, you can see it's done its job in protecting the machine surface there. So let me get them apart, see how they look. Well, I've just spent a bit of time getting all the bolts out. Some of them are a little bit loose, obviously with the powder coating has gunged up the threads. So I've had to cut some of the bolts off and just get a spanner and a ratchet on some of the others. And then went over and sort of clean up the mating surfaces as well. So that's obviously where the old ring goes, at the top there. To join the two parts of the caliper together. And likewise on the other side, I've also cleaned up the mating surfaces. Obviously you saw where the bolt surfaces are, obviously where the bleed nipple goes, where the pipe supply goes for the brake feed, and likewise on the other side, obviously that's the other surface where the seal will go, so that's all ready. Also a little look again inside the sort of kit. So I've got 4 pistons, and the seal kits, some bleed nipples and some grease. Obviously all the O-rings and stuff are in there. So all ready for me to assemble it. So I'll crack on and try and get it back together again. So you might have seen I had a bit of trouble getting the piston to start going in. It was basically getting stuck on the seal, as you can imagine. So I had to put it onto a flat surface with a bit of cushion underneath, so I didn't damage the powder coating. And then use a nylon mallet just to sort of tap it to get it nice and straight and to go in. So now it's actually fully seated. So the intention now is to try and get this outer bit of this seal over this actual lip here. And then you actually use the new securing ring around the outside of the seal to actually hold it in place. Wow, the actual spring clip went on a lot easier than I thought it would, because they were a bit of an issue to get off. But yeah, literally just pulled it apart by hand. It's gone in there and sat around the outside now. So now the dust seal won't actually come off now. So that's held in place. That's one side done. And obviously later on I hope to be able to put it back together again, put an air supply into the main side as before. And obviously once it goes down there, it should obviously blow the cylinder back out when required. So on to the other side. Right, the other side's gone straight in again, just a little bit of a tap with the nylon mallet. So this is the clip again. So let's see how hard this one is to put on. Didn't even break a fingernail. Right, that's all that done. So now it's just be hopefully putting the seal in the other side one and then bolting the lot back together again. I've put the old bleed nipple back in because the new one had a lot longer thread on it and was already hitting the seat before it was even biting on the sort of first thread. So I'll put the old one back in for now. It seems to be nice and clear. Put it all bolted up. Gonna give it a bit of a test in a minute. So it looks nice. Looks even better when you compare it with the other one. So I got it back in the vise again, as I was yesterday trying to get it apart using the airline, obviously to simulate hydraulic fluid. Give it a bit of a blast, just watching the cylinders. Doesn't take much air pressure to get them out, so there's no stickage going on. And they do go back in nice and easy. So if the other one comes apart as reasonably easy as this one did and ends up looking as good, I'll be a happy bunny.